Hello, everybody, and welcome back to this episode of the Deep Penetration Podcast. If you don't know who I am, my name is Danny, and I am a self-esteem and love coach, and I work with the LGBTQ plus community when it comes to all matters of love and self and acceptance and all those things that we struggle with on a day-to-day basis. Today's episode and what I wanted to talk about was the perfect relationship, right? And I know I'm going to sound super pessimistic right now. And I'm sorry if I'm raining on your parade, but the perfect relationship does not exist. And I know this sounds super harsh, but it's the reality, right? So often I hear people say, the perfect person is out there somewhere, or you haven't allowed your perfect match to find you because you're wasting your time with all these other losers. Again, that's a false narrative that you have allowed yourself to believe. Granted, there are a lot of people out there who will waste your time. So setting personal boundaries is going to be incredibly important. And knowing when to walk away from dating or a relationship is going to be super important. But here's the irony. Myself, I'm a hopeless romantic, right? But I'm also realistic. So if you think that the perfect person or there is a perfect person for you, you will end up being disappointed. If you're triggered by this, I completely understand, but allow me to explain my point a little bit. So make sure that you stick through the entirety of the episode so you actually understand where I am coming from. So let us break down what perfection actually means, right? Essentially, perfection, well, the definition of perfection, it's a condition or a state or a quality of being free or as free as possible from any flaws or defects. And people who strive for perfection, they never really attain it. And if you're wondering why perfection is never really attained, if you're a perfectionist, then you will understand what it is that I am talking about or what I'm about to say, right? So if you're a perfectionist, you set a goal for yourself that is beyond what most people can achieve. And because you are a perfectionist, you work incredibly hard at achieving that goal. And that's your sole focus, right? That's the only thing that you are working towards. And the unfortunate thing about that is that the experiences along the way, which bring meaning and value to your work, are often ignored or they're dismissed because you are so hyper focused on achieving that one singular goal. So you achieve that goal, right? And now that new goal that you have achieved is the standard. So it's what essentially I would call your baseline now. So your baseline is now moved, right? So you set the bar higher for yourself. You push the finish line backwards and then you rinse and repeat. So perfection is like this unobtainable goal or this unobtainable way of living that we think equates to excellence or equates to having a more fulfilling life, achieving all the things that we want, having the success that we desire. And look, at the end of the day, for a lot of people, you're able to achieve that. You're able to achieve that level of success. But there are so many people that I work with on a daily basis that have acquired that level of success and they are still miserable. And they're miserable because they've ignored the entire journey. And essentially, their entire identity, your entire identity has become achieving this vision of success. So what does it take to achieve excellence, right? Because for me, there's a difference between striving for perfection and striving for excellence. And striving for excellence requires dedication and focus and passion, empathy, drive, determination. But above all of that, it requires patience. There's this common misconception that the perfect person will require less work, right? It'll be organic and easy. And that is the biggest lie that you can tell yourself. because the key ingredient to a failed relationship is having that mindset, right? Really allowing yourself to believe that finding somebody who is on your level in regards to perfection will result in an easy relationship. And at the end of the day, a lot of people who strive for perfection don't achieve it, which ends up causing a level of insecurity. So if you are attracting yourself to a perfectionist, it is very possible that being with that personality type may highlight insecurities that you have within yourself. So why do I say that striving for that perfect relationship or that perfect person is an ingredient to a failed relationship? Here's why. So it is likely that if you are someone that is looking for the perfect match, right? You hold yourself to a higher standard, or you perceive yourself as a perfectionist, and therefore there is a concerted effort to find, at bare minimum, your equal. Let me clarify this too, by the way, because I think I don't want people to take this as like the truth or like, the gospel or any of those types of things. This is completely based off of my experience as a coach working with a ton of people who have this type of personality. So it is not rooted in science. It's not rooted in specific facts. It is solely based on my personal experience working with tons and tons of individuals and couples. So here is where the issue lies, right? So as a perfectionist, you are a fixer. And what does that mean? You are acutely aware of flaws and imperfections or mistakes, and this triggers your need to either fix or abandon. How does this translate, right, in a dating relationship scenario? So you are consciously or subconsciously holding your partner to a higher standard that is not realistic or sustainable, which means they will fail at some point. And when they do, you will point out or be hyper aware of those mistakes, those flaws, and those failures, right? You are accustomed to identifying flaws, which can result in you breaking down your partner's self-esteem. When they fail, it gives you, the perfectionist, purpose. Why? Because now you have something to fix, an identity that you adopted at some point in your life and perfected. So the opposite of this is you walk away, right? If you do not find a sense of purpose within the relationship that fits that identity that you have made a part of yourself, what are you doing there, right? What value do you find in that relationship? So if you are the type of person to walk away, what ends up happening is it further feeds into the narrative that the perfect person is out there somewhere, right? You just haven't found them yet. But this is also a bit of a defense mechanism because it keeps you in the realm of possibilities. So by living in the realm of possibilities, you have the control. You can imagine and dream up scenarios that are not rooted in reality and predict the outcome, which prevents you from failing, which is every single perfectionist's biggest nightmare. So how do you find a love that is healthy and sustainable and fulfilling, right? The first thing that I tell my clients and that I'm telling you now is you have to have a level of awareness. Perfectionism, it's a mask for insecurities and low self-esteem, right? So there have been several studies that have linked individuals who scored higher on the perfectionist scale with low self-esteem. And when given constructive criticism, usually reacted poorly due to fears of failure or inadequacy or whatever the case may be. And If you want a reference, I'm more than happy to provide a reference for you for some of these studies. That is something that I think is incredibly important because if I'm going to be stating some facts, I think it is important that I prove it. So, perfectionism and negative reactions to constructive criticism, right? That's intrinsically a part of a person who is a perfectionist, their behaviors. Because I can tell you myself, I'm pretty similar in that way. You know, I would categorize myself as somebody who is a perfectionist to a certain degree, and sometimes it's to my detriment, right? Because I'm incredibly hard on myself. There are times that I am sitting here filming content and I'm like, what am I doing? Does this even have value? Is anybody learning from this? Um, and to be honest with you, it can be kind of hard sometimes, but I always have to fall back to what I know and my mission and my purpose. I mean, honestly, the guys that are back here behind the camera can probably tell you there are so many times that I'm like, that sounded like shit or that didn't work, right? Yeah. Okay. See, proof. You probably can't hear that because we have great sound equipment. So it kind of drowns out a lot of things, but they agreed. They said yes. But here's the thing, as long as you are aware of those things and you are actively working on those things every single day, to me, that is you allowing yourself to just be human, to just experience life as it comes, to take the falls and the criticism and all of that stuff. It's going to suck, it's going to hurt, but utilizing it as lessons so that you can build yourself back up, your character, and also be consciously aware of other people and your personal environment. So, why do I say all of this, right? We're talking about awareness. When you identify patterns of behavior, mindsets, or even character attributes that are no longer serving you, it opens up the possibility to outcomes you haven't even thought of or conceived, right? How you are allowing yourself to be present, to be connected, and to actually grow, which takes me to my second point, which is growth, right? The second thing, um, the second things get hard, the narrative you created in your mind no longer makes sense, and therefore you convince yourself that this is not the right person, when in reality it very well could be. You are just ignoring the lesson. And what is the lesson? It's growth. You hear it all the time, or I hear it all the time, right? I want to grow old with this person. We've grown to love each other, or we grew apart. The process of growth involves moments of discomfort. You know, fuck it. It can even be painful. But remember, as a kid, having growing pains, yeah, it sucks, but it's part of life and a big part of building a long lasting, healthy, committed relationship with somebody. So, you know, you grow the most when you're challenged. So, your personal ideologies, when they're questions, when your buttons are pushed, when people push you to like the brink of, I want to kill this person. Obviously, don't. I'm not suggesting that you do. Um, but those challenges is what really helps you to go into a state of reflection and try to unpack these paradigms or these processes that you have running or these ideologies that you have running. And that growth comes when you are able to put your ego aside and process in a way that is inclusive, not only for your partner but for yourself. You know, inclusivity, which means involving or accepting other people into your sphere or your world, oftentimes we forget that that also includes ourselves. We can actually exclude ourselves from a lot of things, right? When we think about people pleasing and doing all of that stuff, or putting other people before yourself, that's you being excluding your needs and your wants and your desires. So inclusivity isn't just about including somebody else into your world. It's about including yourself into that world as well. So that all leads to the third point, which is acceptance, right? When you accept or you validate or you acknowledge and you admire your partner for their differences, that is when you unlock the door to a successful relationship. But keep in mind, relationships are mirrors. So we see in others that which we see in ourselves. And whether that is good or bad, it is the reality. The people that have the biggest influences or the biggest impact on your life are the people that challenge you, are the people that push you outside of your comfort zone and allow you to be authentically yourself. So if you are looking for the perfect person, you won't find them. You have to put in the work. Perfection at its root is a fear of failure. Simply put, right? I mean, I'm sure it's a lot more complex than that because we also have to take into account individual experiences and traumas and all of those things growing up that result in a person feeling like they have to have complete control of their life, which results in a perfectionist type of attitude. But simply put, it's a fear of failure. Well, guess what? Failure is inevitable, especially in a relationship. And it's not about the failure itself, but the recovery from that failure, your ability to come together as a couple and work through the problems together, right? Think about it. The term falling in love, if you really pull back and you actually process that phrase, it makes a lot of freaking sense. You are going to stumble. You are going to fall. But with that, the scrapes, the cuts, the tears, what does falling teach us? It teaches us that you have the ability to get back up. It teaches you that you have the ability to heal, to learn, to recover. So hopefully, when you brush yourself off and you look up and you see your partner's hands extended out to help you up, you take their hand. A big part of building a healthy relationship is being vulnerable and allowing yourself to recognize your own faults and to recognize your own, shortcomings and mistakes and not try to perfect them. Because if you keep this mindset, it is going to be incredibly hard for you to just be present. And that is what's required for you to build connection, for you to build intimacy, for you to have great communication with your partner. If you are hyper focused on your goals and what you want to achieve, you do not leave room for anybody else. So convincing yourself that you are going to find somebody else who has the same level of drive or perfectionism as you do, guess what? You're going to have two very strong, independent people within a relationship, which is not a bad thing. Don't get me wrong. Independence is very important because it helps to maintain your sense of self-identity, but you're going to have two people who are type A personalities and who have their own goals and their own dreams and their own aspirations. And if you don't take a second or a moment to step back and to connect and to really grow within the relationship, you will lose sight of each other. And you may tell me that it's bullshit. You may tell me that I'm being super negative. You may tell me that I'm being pessimistic. But again, this is based on my experience with multitude of tons of people that I have worked with who have experienced this themselves. And I guarantee you have probably experienced this yourself as well if you consider yourself a perfectionist. So I say all of this basically to reiterate the fact that the perfect relationship doesn't exist. You have to work at it. You have to put your ego aside and allow yourself to fall in love with somebody's flaws. Now, if those flaws impact you in a negative way in regards to your core values, that is a completely different conversation altogether. But if you are looking for flaws in somebody so that you can justify moving on from the relationship, that's a you problem. That's not a them problem. And it's something to take into consideration and food for thought. And if that is something that you struggle with all the time, I would highly recommend reaching out. I'm more than happy to have these conversations with you, work through these things, because everybody deserves to have a fulfilling relationship, right? A happy and healthy relationship. So don't convince yourself that it's not a possibility for you, because it is. It's just going to require some work. I hope you guys found this episode to be insightful or inspiring, or, you know, even just educational, whatever the case may be. As long as you are getting something from it, then I have completed my mission, right? Again, I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will see you guys in the next episode.